Tabletop Weekly, and we're the partners of Solarian Games.
I'm Jason.
I'm Peter, and James is out today. He's a little under the weather, so he won't be joining us. And we have a panel guest. Jason?
Yes. Hi, I'm.
Wait. I'm good at this. I'm a pro. I can do this. We had a plan.
I'll just introduce myself. So my name's Gabe. Hi, I'm Gabe.
Introduce this guy.
And I'm.
It's Gabe.
I'm a friend of Jason.
We're gonna make
I'm
it
the guest today.
Professional. Here we go. Hey, we have a guest this week on the panel. This is Gabe Garner from the Undiscovered Lands. Gabe, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I am Gabe from the Undiscovered Lands, and I am the guest on the panel today. I run tabletop games, primarily Dungeons and Dragons, for kids online, and I am an old friend of Jason, so I'm happy to be here today.
Awesome. Good to have you.
All right, so this week's stories. Apocalypse the Risen is a new 5e compatible game. The SCP Foundation exists. Lego minifigs are coming out for Dungeons and Dragons, and Hasbro earnings are out for Q2, and they are all in on digital.
Right. All right, so our first story this week has to do with a new product out called Apocalypse the Risen. It's a new 5e compatible game. It says it's a campaign for where you play the everyday survivor battling the damned and risen dead to help your colony thrive, scavenge, slay, survive. And it looks really cool. It looks like a very cool horror type game, and it works off of something called spine powered, which is I really don't understand what all that means. I think it said it's supposed to make the 5e grittier. We had a question though, Gabe, you'd probably be a good one to answer this. What does it mean when something is 5e compatible?
Well, I mean, I think that there are probably varying degrees of what that means, but I think the general sense is obviously like if you played 5e and you come to this, game system, it'll probably be pretty familiar to you.
Right.
In most cases, though, I mean, if you're creating a new game, you're gonna have your own twist and your own take on things. So I'm sure it's not like apples to apples. But yeah, that's usually it. There's probably a Constitution saving throw that you make, and you know how those work, so you'll understand how they work here, even if they have a different context.
Right. So things should be relatively compatible in that if you have a monster in D&D you wanted to use in this, it wouldn't be hard at all to bring that in.
I think so. I mean, that's what I would guess. Again, I haven't looked at the rules of the game, but that's generally what 5e compatible means. And I have seen it for like products where they want to, take us out of like a fantasy version of D&D. Let's make a sci-fi version of D&D or something,
Right.
And you can kind of port some of those traits over. And like I said, it's usually just like they're trying to say like if you know how to play 5e, you'll know how to play this.
Right. So it comes with. Go ahead, Jason.
I get the feeling that they are trying to say that this literally you could plug it in with D&D and vice versa, because they have this thing on their site that says, join the exodus to a post-apocalyptic dark fantasy that makes D&D dangerous again.
Right.
So I feel like they want you to say, yeah, I'm playing D&D. I'm playing the Apocalypse, the Risen. I don't know, setting.
Yeah.
I guess it's a setting. I mean, I don't know. I didn't even know they could say D&D and not get in trouble for that. So,
yeah, I don't know, but they have a couple adventures for it. They have 17 entirely unique classes, not reskinned fantasy D&D. So apparently they're their own classes. They've got different heroes here, and then different races. So they have like new. They said not rehashed fantasy races. There are their own new races that they've made up. Things like angels, half demons,
fallen angels.
Fallen angels, half demons, 7 sin natures, just stuff like that. So it looks really cool. The artwork for it is fantastic. I love horror. We talked about this last week, and it would be something that I would be interested in checking out.
Yeah, and I want to see like these classes for sure.
I mean, Wizards of the Coast has really been embracing a lot of that stuff lately too. I mean, they've added like a lot of like third-party content straight into D&D Beyond, which I'm sure we'll talk more about D&D Beyond and stuff later. But it's been interesting to see a lot of like people really getting into some of these different products and kind of creating them, because I mean, in a lot of cases, a lot of these products are now literally being sold on D&D. Like you can actually go into D&D Beyond and buy these new races and classes. I don't know if that's the case with this one yet. It's been a few others that have been kind of established for a while.
Right.
But it's interesting to see like more and more of these kind of products coming up.
Yeah.
And I'm excited, for
It
more
definitely
content.
starts confusing me when I go into D&D Beyond and I see all these races from things that I've never even, heard of.
Right.
I should say that Gabe is my DM. We're about to start a new campaign, so I'm picking the race for my character, and I'm just flummoxed.
Okay.
Oh my gosh,
It's too many. Right.
too many. I'm a
Yeah.
human.
Right.
I know.
Right.
Usually it's like just like you just think about it as like animal person or something else. Like it's all like I'm a rabbit person. I'm an eagle person.
Dude, I came really close to picking what are these things called? Like mechagnomes or autognomes. I came really close to picking an autognome until I realized that wasn't actually a thing. It was just like a construct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
yes,
autognomes
they're
are from Spelljammer, and I guess regular gnomes make these autognomes that they send out as their robot avatars, and I'm going down a rabbit hole. Never mind.
So it's like a golem of sorts.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not playing one, so it doesn't matter.
All right, so we'll have it in the show notes. Check it out. It looks really good. It's something I would play. I think I definitely, if I saw that at a convention, I would absolutely try it out. And then to go along with that, we have this thing called the SCP Foundation. Now, I backed an SCP product on Kickstarter. This is not new. This has been around a while. It's a collaborative story, collaborative speculation fiction wiki. And so all these people have written in and contributed to this whole like genre or this world that they've created. There's tons and tons and tons of stuff on here, stories, creatures, all kinds of stuff. And it's sort of like a world book for something that you could use for what we just talked about, Apocalypse. That's why I brought it up. But it could be for something like, I don't know, what was that show? Now I'm blanking. The one with the Scully and
X-Files.
X-Files. Yeah. So the X-Files type stuff. And so like I'm showing on the screen now, if you're watching the video, like this is one of the books, the SCP Foundation. This is the Black Journal, and it's pretty beefy and the art is really good. They have all kinds of stuff in it. And then
hold that cover up again.
Okay.
So let me just describe the cover that he's holding up. It's pull it back a little bit. You can't see the whole thing.
Sorry.
So it's got this really cool sort of quasi-governmental kind of font at the top, very X-Files, and then there's sort of can't tell if it's an alien or a monster doing sort of an Edvard Munch the screen, pulling his face back. It's eerie as can be. It absolutely makes me want to open this thing up and see what secrets are hidden inside.
Right. And heck, if you were playing a game, I don't know, like Top Secret, and you want to do some like, crazy stuff like, add monsters and stuff to it. This would be great for that.
Good idea.
But it's because it's the SCP is a clandestine organization that works with governments to, as they say, secure, contain, and protect society. So it's pretty cool.
That's very cool. All right. Let's see here. Moving on. The Critical Role. There we go. I can say it properly. Looks like Critical Role has a new show going to be centered around the Cats of Midst, and it's going to be called Moonward. Anyway, what else is happening? GaryCon badges are on sale today. Today is the first day to buy GaryCon badges. So today is Sunday, July 28th when we are recording this. And one thing I noticed is there's going to be lots of Top Secret getting run. Obviously, I'll be running some. Peter, are you going to be running some Top Secret?
No, I'm not going to be at GaryCon this year.
Oh,
okay.
Never mind.
Sorry.
Nobody's going to GaryCon this year. It's over. Gabe, you've got to come in Peter's place. We'll just come hang out with me.
I don't have vacation or time off or at all.
Talk to your boss.
Yeah, I know. I should really. That guy's kind of a jerk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to at some point.
He's a real driver.
Children. I have many children who want to play Dungeons and Dragons all week, and it's hard to get time off. But yes, someday I promise I'll go to GaryCon.
Well, this would be a good time to explain for the listeners who don't know, Gabe, exactly what it is that you do. You mentioned that you run games for kids, but you quit a pretty serious big time job in the agency world and just went off and did this.
Yes, I am one of those COVID turnaround projects where I thought, wouldn't it be cool instead of working at this awful corporate job every day, if instead I ran Dungeons and Dragons games for children online? And it sounded just weird enough to work, and that's what I do. And so parents pay me to play Dungeons and Dragons with their kids online, and that's a whole business I've got. And I run 14 games a week, actually 18 technically,
Nice.
for kids. And yeah, it's basically the best job in the world. It's super fun.
It's like you have like an after school camp for D&D.
That's exactly right. It's an online after school program. We play over Zoom. I've been doing it we've had, I mean, in terms of like, I don't know how many people out there have, noticed campaigns like ending soon and stuff, or, your campaign sputters out or whatever. We've been going for about 3 years in the same campaign. We're about to wrap up right now at this 15th level. And, I've never played games that long with anybody. And I played games that long with kids that are 9 now going on 12. So it's
like,
really cool.
It's like the Kumon Learning Center for mind flayers and beholders.
So I got
Exactly.
I got a good question for you. That so you're running all these different campaigns, or you're running this number of campaigns. Are they all the same campaign
Yep.
with different groups? Because I was gonna say that sounds like a ton of work if it was multiple campaigns.
It is all the same campaign. It is a homebrew campaign that I created myself.
Sure.
Yeah. So it is one campaign that I run for everybody. Everybody plays it differently. But yeah, I've at this point run through this campaign, 18 times. I
Sure.
have 4 test groups, so I test everything before it goes into regular rotation. But yeah, no, it's all one campaign and everybody's running it. But I'm just now getting to a point where I'm hiring some of the dungeon masters. And we're going to expand a little bit beyond just my one campaign. And I'm literally working on the second campaign, season 2, coming up, which actually Jason is in one of my test games for.
Nice.
But yeah, that's what I do.
All right.
So Gabe has all of these amazing dioramas and miniatures, and it's not like I've never seen anything like it before, because the cameras are set down at the miniatures level. And so you're playing with minis, but you feel like you're in the actual environment that they're in. So everything, I mean, he's building these things all week long, every week. It's very cool. And as a segue to the next piece of news, there's other ways you can play. One way you might do if you don't have minis is you could use Legos, right? So Lego, the actual official Lego company, is coming out with a set of Dungeons and Dragons minifigs. They are actually the little Lego dudes with the yellow heads and everything, but they look amazing. You have all the different classes and races and everything. And they're coming in what's called a blind box. So you go to Target or, I don't know, Walmart or wherever, or Barnes and Noble, and you pick up the box and you don't know what you're going to get. You just buy the box wondering what you're going to get. But some of the Lego forums online have said that if you use an app like Brick Finder, you can actually scan the QR, or not the QR code, the the UPC code, and it will tell you what's in there, so you don't accidentally buy 15 paladins.
Oh, nice. All right.
But
that's cool.
It's kind of neat. So if anybody, so mostly you would think people are going to buy these to kind of set them on their shelf and say that looks really cool. But Goodman Games has a book where there's a chapter about how to play with Legos. The book is called How to Write Adventure Modules That Don't Suck. And Merle Rasmussen, that's our own Solarian Games, is Merle Rasmussen, the creator of Top Secret back in 1980, and again now in the 21st century, has rotified an entire chapter on how to play fantasy or spy or any kind of TTRPG with Legos. So he describes his method, which is very small scale. Like he has it so that one little smallest possible brick indicates like the space a human could take up. But he also talks about how you can play it at full scale. And so you can actually, he does it really neat. He actually has the players build the Legos before the game starts. So they're all building terrain, and they don't know why they're building it. And then when they're done, they basically play through, sorry, knocked my mic over. They play through the adventure that they've just built with Legos.
Yeah, it's a collaborative, but then Merle has ways to put like random stuff in there so you don't know what it, like it's not just you built it so you know everything. There's random stuff in there and rules for doing that as well.
Yeah. I think it's kind of neat since Gabe, I mean, the kids you play with are older than, they're old enough to play Dungeons and Dragons properly. But I think it's really neat when people find ways for really young kids to play. Like Cory Doctorow did an article in the first issue of Gygax magazine about how he played with his toddler. And, maybe slightly older kids that aren't old enough to play, quote unquote real D&D might just want to do the Lego thing. There's a lot. It's so cool when people find the different ways to do it at those ages.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like, even like, I mean, it's a great activity for kids in general. And that's, I mean, obviously why I built a business on it. But yeah, even with like very young kids, just the act of like, sort of random storytelling with success or failures. I mean, with our son, when he was like, I don't know, 5 or 6, we used to play like make-up games where we would roll a d20, and if you got a 10 or above, it was a success, or below. And so whenever we got to like these decision points in the games, we would roll dice to see what happens. Really simple mechanic, but it turned story into game, which is a really great way to introduce kids to that kind of stuff. But yeah, I love the Lego thing too. I think it's great. We actually have one of the dungeon masters I'm working on hiring has this idea to create a whole Lego game, like literally a whole campaign that's just made out of Legos for visuals and all that kind of stuff. And it seems kind of serendipitous that they released all this Lego stuff. Literally, he's been working on it for months. And they just released all this new stuff, and he's just like, "Yeah, this is great." So,
Yeah,
I think it's going to be a great way to introduce the kids to the game.
I saw a book at a convention once where they had mecha. It was a mecha game, and you built your mecha out of Lego, so you didn't have to like build a model and paint it and stuff. The idea is that you would take your Lego set, and you would build your mecha, and you would use that on the board. And then our buddy Jonathan Reinhardt, he runs something at TotalCon every year that's a war game that uses Lego. It's like a Hoth type scene, like it's Star Wars, like snow Hoth battle using Legos. So that's pretty. I mean, it's all kinds of cool stuff you can do with Legos.
Totally.
You know what rhymes a little bit with Legos is
What?
our next piece that you have on Dyson Logos.
Oh, Dyson Logos. Yeah. So Dyson Logos is it's an awesome site. Again, this is not news. This is just something cool to share. But I mean, I guess the news would be that he puts out maps every week. So this is a thing. I think he has a Patreon that you can join that you can get some of these maps. But these are free for you to use. You can do whatever you want with them other than professional, like you can't sell these or put them in a professional product. But for your own campaigns, your home campaigns and stuff, you need a map. He's got dozens and dozens. I mean, he may have hundreds of these. I don't know. Last time I looked, there was just dozens of them. And they have like, terrains, cities, dungeons. It's actually really, really cool. And his maps are top quality. And Jason, you've talked to him before, right?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't worked with him on anything with Solarian yet, but I've known him online for a long time and sent him some cereal in the mail once.
Right. But it's just a really awesome resource.
Yeah, he's just a great guy. We were all fans of Dyson's around here.
Okay.
So what else do we have? Some quick news here. Dark Horse Comics is actually going to be doing they've signed a deal with Wizards of the Coast, and they are going to be doing comics about Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons. So it's been a while, I think, since there were Dungeons and Dragons comics. I think that hasn't happened since the 80s. Am I right or wrong? Gabe, you know way more about comics than I do.
No, you're totally wrong.
Yes. It's been happening forever, hasn't it?
I don't know about forever, but it's happening a little while. I don't know if Dark Horse was publishing them. But I only know because my brother bought me a Dungeons and Dragons comic book for Christmas this past year, and it looked like it came out at least within the last 4 years.
Okay.
So
so they must just have a new deal. It just says they got a new publishing line for 2025, comics and graphic novels expanding the worlds of Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering. So I don't know when they say expanding the worlds, if that means they're actually creating some sort of new campaign settings or just doing more stuff, but there it is.
I really wish there had been a series of actual like full-on comics from the old ads that you used to get in the comic books. Do you remember?
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, there's one-page ads. I like those characters. They were really cool.
I don't know.
Yes.
Can you describe these? Because I'm not sure I know which ones you mean.
Oh my
So
god, I even
yeah,
have some somewhere.
there was back in
Yeah,
the 80s, yeah, they had comic books, right? So like you Iron Man or whatever comic book you would buy, and TSR, sorry, TSR at the time, they had ads in there for D&D, but it was it was one page of a comic book, and it was the characters, like it was like, I don't know, like six to eight panels of them in a dungeon doing something.
I think
yeah,
Jake
and they
is
were
looking
like,
for one.
what's weird is that like if you read comics at that time, like they're so you would see one of these ads and you go like it immediately transforms you back to like that time of
Yeah.
like that time reading that comic book. Like it was such a common feature of comics at that time. But yeah, I had the exact same. I actually have one here. Hold on, I can even kind of bring it up on my screen, sort of.
All right.
Let's see
Oh, look at that.
if you can see that there.
Yeah, hold on. Let
That's
me
literally.
Hold on. He
Oops.
can.
Hold on.
Yeah.
There we go.
Bring the right
let
thing up, and
me
then you can make it big.
there you go. Go ahead.
There you go. Okay, great. Yeah, that's one right here. This is
Can you describe
literally
it
one of the.
for our audio listeners?
Yes, it is a rather primitively rendered, short little comic of Dungeons and Dragons. But like they had these. I mean, this one actually features like a shambling mound, and it's got your basic like, fighter wizard kind of thing. But these things were great. I mean, they were just cool. And then at the bottom, they have a little thing for mailing something in for TSR. And kind of shrink this down so you can kind of see that it's got the
There you
little
go.
cutout at the
Yeah.
bottom.
And I think was that
But yeah, these things were just
green
classic.
slime in that bottom frame, I think. Yeah, green slime.
Yeah, totally. It was like I didn't even realize I was nostalgic for this until I saw it and like
Right.
went, oh my god, I totally forgot about those things. And yeah, it would be really cool to see some like weird comic that like takes this whole. It's like one of those things where like they can take a universe out of anything. It'd be awesome if they like actually made some comics around these characters or something just
Yeah.
from this random thing, and it would probably
I,
blow up to become like the most famous D&D thing ever.
and they had like, I think they had like maybe as many as 10 of these, and they were sort of telling a story along the way. Like they did kind of lead into each other. Like this one probably follows another one, a previous one, but I don't think there was more than 10 of them that they did.
Yeah, yeah, no, they were really short, but they were super like I said, they were just really iconic. Like once I saw one of these, I saw this one online and just downloaded it right away because I was like, oh my god, I totally remember those.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Awesome.
exactly. They had like 10 of them, and they're really primitive drawing and stuff, and they're great.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on. There is one last little quick note here. There's going to be, this is not gaming necessarily, but it's pretty weird to me. There's a new Star Trek TV series has been announced. They don't have a name for it yet. Live action TV series, but it's going to be a comedy. So apparently it is set in some sort, it's in the 25th century. We know that. And they're on a resort planet. And apparently all of the Federation outsiders on this resort planet discover that their day-to-day lives are being streamed as a reality show for other people.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like the Truman Show, but Star Trek.
But it's a sitcom.
Yeah.
I don't even know what. I just really hope that they have like a wacky neighbor that drops in every so often to say something funny.
That Ferengi neighbor.
Right.
Yes!
Oh.
He's got a tagline.
He's so Vulcan.
Oh, I was totally gonna do a "She's so that's so Raven" joke.
Right.
How are we going to the same place in our heads?
I don't know. It's funny.
I don't know, but that's perfect. All right, let's get to our big story of the day, and that is that Hasbro has announced its second quarter earnings, and there's some pretty fascinating stuff going on in here. First of all, just to talk about the money for a second, this is all of Hasbro now. This is not just Wizards of the Coast. This is all of the big parent corporation, but this is for the second quarter. And for anybody who doesn't think business talk, that means 3 months. The second quarter revenue was about $1 billion with a B. And that's just for the quarter. And that's down 18% from last year. but they're making more profit. They lost $200 million in this period last year. They made $200 million this year. That's good. But the interesting thing here is that almost all of the company's business segments saw a revenue decline except Wizards of the Coast, and specifically Wizards of the Coast and digital gaming. So tabletop gaming still is the big chunk of the pie, 86% of the total. But Wizards of the Coast had a Q2 revenue of 450 million. That means half, if I'm getting these numbers right, which I probably am not, but at least from the source I have here, Wizards of the Coast was responsible for half of Hasbro's revenue. And that a lot of that came from what they're doing with digital. And so this now makes a lot more sense when we talk about last week, we mentioned that John Haidt was coming in, who the new president who came from Blizzard, who has overseen a lot of digital stuff. And I want to talk about what that means, but I also want to compare just for a moment, because I want to do a compare and contrast when we talk about those kind of numbers. So we're talking about Wizards of the Coast doing basically $500 million in a single quarter. When we think back to what people consider to be the heyday, the high watermark for D&D, the moment when it was a cultural phenomenon, you had a Saturday morning cartoon, you had movies coming on the way, everybody knew what it was, whether it was because they were in the satanic panic or because they were playing it or because they were beating up a kid who was playing it. The point is, everybody knew what it was. That year, that best year ever, how much do you think TSR made? Now, keeping in mind, Wizards of the Coast, $500 million in a quarter. What do you think their best year ever was? Any guess?
$10.
This is not
$20.
Several million, like 10
I
million.
mean, if you adjusted for inflation, I mean, that was like, you're talking about like what, 1854 when D&D
Yeah.
came out or something. I mean,
yeah. So their best year. This is the high watermark. Their best year ever, about $30 million. Even if you account for inflation, that's like $90 million. So that means, let's just talk in modern numbers. They made $90 million for the whole year. Hasbro made over 5 times that in a quarter. I mean, not Hasbro. Wizards made over 5 times that in a quarter. So I think it's pretty clear that we are in the golden age for D&D right now.
Like right now. This quarter, this past quarter.
Nobody in 1984 had quit their job and started a business playing D&D with kids.
Right.
No, nobody was doing that.
Jason, do you want me to share that chart or?
Yeah, let's bring that chart up. You've got a chart, and we'll describe what we're seeing on the screen here in a moment. So first of all, some context. We're going to take a look at at basically how TSR did financially over their career. And this was put together by John Peterson, who wrote Playing at the World and has basically become the historian for all things gaming and TSR. And he put a lot of work into uncovering all the documents and everything that laid this out. So what we're seeing on the screen is going from 1975 to 1986. And you see TSR start out, at nothing, as you do, and slowly kind of work their way up until, maybe they've got 300,000 in revenue. Now, the first year they finally make $1 million is around late 78, 79, something like that, which is also at the moment that the Satanic Panic began with Egbert. I forget his first name. Was it something Egbert? He got lost in the steam tunnels. So basically a college kid who was having a lot of problems in his life and also happened to be playing D&D, disappeared for a while. It got tied to D&D by sort of a media outrage. And that became kind of the impetus for everybody to know what it was. And now D&D shot up. So you slowly see the number go up. So they make 8 million, 10 million, 20 million, all the way up to 30 million in 1984. But then at the bottom, you see this orange line, and that's their actual profits. And it's not doing so hot. It never goes up anywhere near that. In fact, it just dips down and down and down. So, during that heyday, when we thought about Dungeons and Dragons being this absolutely unstoppable force, the actual business behind it all was having a hard time. Nothing, and this kind of explains, how we got to where we are today with Wizards of the Coast being the company that actually has it, because eventually TSR was so in debt that the only way that they could survive was that Wizards of the Coast came in, paid off their debts, and took over Dungeons and Dragons for them.
Right.
So
because they had that little cash cow called Magic the Gathering.
I know, which today is still so big. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yep.
And now the question is, what's the next cash cow? Because nothing lasts forever, and it looks like digital. I mean, we've heard the statement, Wizards is all in on digital, right? But that doesn't mean it's the only thing they're doing. Gabe, you had some thoughts about what it means when they say that.
Yeah, I mean, I've read a lot. I've read a lot of reactions on the Twitterati about people. There's been a lot of like sort of people that don't like the digital aspects of Wizards. I think these are people that probably just don't like WotC in general. But they've kind of cited a lot of they've sort of painted things as like questionable business practices when it comes to like WotC's decisions to go digital and things. And a lot of people are pointing to the idea that like D&D will eventually be this kind of place full of like congested digital products that nobody needs, like loot crates, or which I don't really understand how that would be possible, or like pay to play aspects or something like that.
I think
and while there are
the most paranoid version of it I've heard is ones where people think you're going to get to the point where you have to pay Wizards for a loot crate if you want to level up.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening.
No. I mean, I don't see that happening either. Like, look, you can dislike things that they do, and that's fine, and I get it, and that's totally fine. But I think that it's generally it can be a little hyperbolic. But yeah, I mean, personally, I really like a lot of the digital products that Wizards has. They haven't messed up D&D Beyond yet, and they took it over. I think it's been about a year now since they took hold of D&D Beyond.
Well,
I think before that it was owned by.
I think that's worth explaining, that they didn't originally build it. Who did?
I want to say Fandom, I think was the name of the company. I'm blanking immediately on the name, but I'm pretty sure that was the name of the company. Basically, I believe it was Fandom, which was like a website devoted to fandom. And if I'm wrong about that, look it up and let me know, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And basically, they just kind of, said, hey, Wizards, we want to make a platform that makes it easier to play D&D. Is that cool? And they said, yeah, sure, go for it. And, and I know that Wizards of the Coast, I mean, with 4th edition, people complain about why 4th edition was so bad. When in fact, and Jason and I played 4th edition.
That's actually how we reconnected.
Yes, it is true. But 4th edition was supposed to launch with an online component. That's why 4th edition was structured the way it was, which never launched. So they had tried to get something off the ground for a long time. Enter Fandom, third party. They make a fantastic tool. They just happen to be good at making software, and I think D&D Beyond is great. With D&D Beyond, I am able to play D&D with 9-year-olds because I can show them how everything works much easier than sort of the kind of the heady concepts they would have to get from just like reading straight from a book. They have it's a little bit more accessible now because I can kind of show them, where things are in their character sheet and stuff. So yeah, then I think it was about a year ago that WotC finally said, okay, look, we're gonna basically buy this off of you. And so they did that, and there was a lot of concern that they were going to screw it up, because which I think is valid. Like, they didn't own it before; these other guys did. They did a great job stewarding it. Handing a platform like that off to a big Hasbro-ish company could be really bad. Things could go badly. But I think that they've managed to steward it pretty safely, pretty comfortably. They've done a couple of things I don't like. One of the things they did was, it used to be that you could a la carte things from all the different source books, which I thought was fantastic. So I don't need to buy all of Tasha's if I don't want to buy all of Tasha's. If I only want to buy a couple of classes, or the class that's listed there, and then a couple of races, I can just sort of a la carte buy those things for a few bucks. They've gone away from that in just about the past 2 months, and that's the only bad thing I can say that they have done since they took over. And now you have to buy the whole book.
I can understand the reasoning behind that, because if it wasn't digital, you'd have to buy the whole book. So, I wouldn't be too upset. So in the new game, I'm probably going to play one of the classes that's in Tasha's, because that's the one I'm interested in, the version of the Artificer in there. And I'm a print aficionado through and through. But when it comes to jumping in and playing really quickly, it's very helpful to go on to D&D Beyond and say, I've got a game coming up in 30 minutes. I haven't made a character yet. I'm just going to run through and do this. And then when the game gets canceled because it's D&D and I have more time afterwards, then I go and I pull my actual physical copy of Tasha's off the bookshelf. I sit down and I flip through the pages, and I get a way more in-depth, intense experience thinking about it. I don't want just one or the other. They work really well together.
I think the thing that people are the thing that people are having an issue with in terms of a lot of the push to digital that people are making is just the idea of ownership. And I think people don't like the idea of like renting your content from another company. The idea at the end of the day is Wizard, like I am buying this content from them. So I have a bunch of content. Most content I have bought so that I have the options for my players to play it. And so like, but it's all there, right? So I mean, like if Wizards went out of, I don't know, if this thing went away, all my products would go away too. But it's kind of the model of all digital stuff now. Until they have a better one, I don't know what else you'd do. Like I own a bunch of movies on Apple TV, for a library that I paid for there. And sure, they could, their rights could change and I could lose access to those or something like that. But it is kind of just the overall digital model of all things digital. So there's a lot of people who kind of like find something sinister about it. They'll also say stuff like, oh, this is what they're trying to do. They're trying, Wizards wants you to be beholden to them and their products so that you have to use their digital, like you have to be a part of their walled garden and you can't go out of it. Now
that's not unfair. And I feel the
silly.
same way. I mean, that is my biggest problem with digital content, is that I do want to own things. And so, but the thing is, you're not forced to use the digital content. You mentioned Apple TV, which is a perfect example, right? If I just want the convenience of buying a movie, quote unquote, on Apple TV, I realize that it could go away. So if I want to be sure I own it, I buy physical media. I own DVDs specifically because I don't want to lose the movie. And I own physical books for D&D because that way, no matter what they do to their platform, I can always play the game. And I hope that that's kind of where Wizards is going long term. Just like, it's like vinyl, right? And I did a little bit of research before this. I'd heard this before, but I wanted to look it up anyway. And Gen Z, which is where all of the focus is right now from a spending perspective right now, like who are we advertising to? Who's going to buy all this stuff? It's Gen Z. And Gen Z is the generation that's buying all the physical media right now. They love having actual things to hold, but they also use the digital. They recognize that they want that permanence, but they're also digitally native enough that they know how to do both. And I think that's the future, I hope.
Yeah, my daughter has a bunch of CDs and vinyl that she's bought. She's 15, and she actually sits in her room and plays records. Like she also listens to digital, obviously, but she will put a record on in her room and listen to it, or a CD.
Yeah, we went up to see this band a couple of weeks ago, Horse Girl, and I just mentioned who it was because the band themselves are all really young. They're like, I think, freshmen or sophomores in college, but the band is amazing. Go listen to Horse Girl, right? Great band. But so the crowd was an all ages crowd, and most of the people there were between, I'd say, the ages of like 17 and 22, something like that. And yeah, I'm that guy at the show, right?
Yeah,
but it's a good band.
I've been that guy.
Yeah, I don't care. Whatever. It's a good.
Just say you're someone's dad.
Yeah, I could just. I'm from a record company. Anyway, but the point is, two things that really stood out to me about the show. One was that at the merch table, all the bands were selling cassettes and zines. Like they made a bunch of printed zines and they had cassettes and stuff they'd made at home because they just wanted to make actual things with their own hands. That was just, everybody had that for sale. And the other thing I noticed in this age of a crowd, nobody was taking a photo or video of the show. They were all too busy getting into the music and dancing and just being idiots and having a good time.
Awesome.
I mean, it was great. So
Yep.
you know, I'm perfectly happy for Wizards to make more money on digital because I don't want D&D to go away.
Yeah, I just sort of disagree with the dichotomy that people kind of create. That
Mhm.
there's something like that there's this, idea that because they're investing more in digital, eventually I've literally seen hot takes on this new quote saying like, this is going to be the last version we ever have printed books.
Yeah,
And I'm
no
like,
way.
come on, man. I mean, I really don't think that's the case. I mean, I don't know. Whatever. I don't. Maybe that'll happen someday, but it'll be because nobody has books, or I don't know. Nobody's making books or something.
Yeah.
It won't be D&D that
Look,
does that.
15 years ago, I was talking about PDFs, maybe 20 years ago. I don't know. Time flies, right? I was talking about PDFs and how they were going to be the thing that people are going to want. Everybody's going to want PDFs for games because you're going to be able to put it on your laptop or whatever. You're going to be able to store all your stuff in one place. And I had more than one person tell me that that was crazy, that no one will ever want to do that. They're going to want the books. And one of the people that told me that now has way more PDFs than they do actual books, and everybody has PDFs. I worked in engineering. I work in engineering, so I was one of the early adopters of putting stuff on PDF, specs and drawings and stuff like that. And I was like, "Oh, this is going to be great for gaming," and they were like, "No, it won't. It's going to be awful." And it's like, but now it's everybody. I mean, it's everywhere, and everyone has it. And you honestly, if you have a gaming business, you need to have PDFs available to people.
In the chat, Linda the Gamer Girl is here. And hi, Linda. We are always so happy that we have a live listener.
Right.
But Linda says, I think is a good point. She says, well, they're just going to print less books for this edition. And maybe so. I mean, we'll have to see. I honestly think that there's actually a pretty good profit margin in books when you do it at the scale that Wizards does it at. And people do like to collect things. So it will be interesting to see if they actually end up printing less books or if it's a different story. So we should keep an eye on that.
And considering they made almost $1 billion this quarter, I think they kind of know what they're doing. Like, I don't think they're making critical mistakes.
And I think that the way that they're approaching a lot of this stuff makes a lot of sense. I mean, like, for instance, like you can buy the online, you can buy the D&D Beyond version of the rules in order to get them integrated into your D&D Beyond account, which is great if you play online. Awesome, cool, which I think is perfectly fine. If you're more into, and you can also, obviously you can use that at the table too if you want to look rules up or something on your phone. You can do that too, or you can now obviously have the printed version. But what I think people sort of fail to notice too is like they do have the alternative cover books and stuff that they publish now, the special edition books that they publish now, and the reason those were a direct response to your friendly local game stores and them saying like, hey, we want stuff to sell that's a little bit something special. So they said, okay, cool, we're going to actually make these special versions of the books so that you have to go into your game store and buy those, right? And they're like special editions for you and stuff. So like I feel like people want that. They want that special version of the book, and like I feel like they're meeting that need too,
And they do such a good job with it. I'm amazed that the special edition really is so much better every time. I bought 2 sets of the special edition for 5e because I really wanted to have it at the table, but I also wanted to have one to put away and not mess up. I'm sure a lot of other people did that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think it's great. You know what I mean? I think like little touches like that, I think they're meeting your vinyl collector,
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of creative. We've got something for them. Like the thing that people forget is like Hasbro makes this stuff. It's not some sinister plot. Like I've literally heard people say like, this is how they're going to get you. Like what are you talking about, dude? like what? They're going to
I don't know what they're going to do with you once they got you.
Right.
I've been duped, like, what are you talking about? Like, okay, cool. Like, they're making things because people will buy them and use them. And I think that's great. I don't have a problem with it. Like, look, if they start gouging people on prices or if they start doing things that are sketchy, I just haven't seen anything that really fits that bill. Like I said, the only thing that I got a little bummed about was when I lost access to the a la carte stuff. And I wish they would bring that back. But I get it. It's fine. Whatever. It's a small complaint in a long line of pretty solid support. Like D&D Beyond is a good platform. It does a good job, you know, of letting you play the game. And they're expanding that with, you know, they've got a VTT coming out. We'll see how that is. I've seen some pictures of it, but it's like literally like 3D dungeons and stuff like that. You know, that looks a little video gamey for me. But I know that there are people will dig that, and if people like it, great.
I mean, there's even,
so,
I think we might have this for news. No, actually, this is old news, not new news. But there's a VR platform coming out soon.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Well, I don't know that it's actually going to be, it's not a VR VTT. It's not a virtual reality, virtual tabletop. It's actually just a game. And it's made by a company that made another VR game that was kind of like D&D, blah, blah, blah. I haven't tried it yet, so I don't have anything to say about it. But yeah, there's always going to be things like this. And there always have. Because I play first edition D&D when I have a choice, or first edition AD&D when I have a choice, right? And when I play first edition AD&D, I use computer software that was made by TSR to make it easier. I have the original discs for my Apple II that let me create characters, create encounters, roll up monsters, the whole thing, all the stuff that we're doing in D&D Beyond. There was very primitive versions of it already happening in 1980, whatever. You know, this has always happened.
Wait a minute. Are they on 3.5 inch or 5 1/4?
5 1/4.
5. Okay. Right.
Yep. 5 1/4. I don't have here at the new house. I haven't set everything up yet, but when I have the whole setup again, I will put up some pictures of it. But it was good. You know, I mean, when you can have things that make a game go faster, then you can focus on playing with your friends. That's excellent.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
You know, we talked about this earlier. Oh, sorry.
No, good. No.
Oh yeah. I know it's been a long time. No, we talked about this before, and I think that it all comes down to this idea that, you know, there are so many ways to come at this game, and there's so many different ways that people play it, and everyone sort of like hears about these new things, and then sort of brings it to their frame of reference for how they play D&D. And if it somehow fits outside of that, they get like angry or territorial or something like that, without sort of understanding that, like, you could probably have spent 10 years playing D&D with your buddies at your table, doing whatever you do, and then go play at a different game and not even recognize the game.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's just, there are so many different ways that people come at it, and they have their own little intricacies and nuances. And yeah, maybe the way that you play the game would suck to play online. You know, maybe that's just the way that you do it. And so you don't want the idea of playing online at all. Sounds ridiculous to you.
Yeah.
But like, you have to understand, like, right, like, there are just, it's like, if you understand how many different ways there are to enjoy this game and to experience it, coming up with new ones that sort of, if they fit outside of your desire, like, I mean, on D&D Beyond, you can buy and collect digital dice. I will never do that.
No.
Like, it's nice when I get them for some perk, but like, I don't need to buy fake dice, you know, like, I don't need that. Like, it's cool. I like that they exist. I like that somebody likes that. I buy real dice. I don't even play with real dice because I play online all the time. But like, I like having real dice, you know. So like, that's something that I'm not going to judge someone for buying a set of digital dice. Like, okay, go for it, whatever.
Yeah, maybe a little
like,
bit.
It's not interesting to me.
Maybe a little bit.
I mean, some of them are cool. They do cool stuff on the, you know, they like transform into things and everything.
Okay.
I think they even have some Lego. Yeah.
Well, there's also,
It's a little, there. Yeah.
Let's look at it from my just a little bit from my perspective, because I'm a little different than you two. I don't even play D&D. Like, I got nothing against it. I think it's great that they're doing their thing, and I'm all for it or whatever. But I haven't played D&D in I don't know, over a decade. And I mean, I played at cons every once in a while. There's just other games I enjoyed playing better. Again, not a slight on D&D or anything, but I'm happy they're doing whatever, you know, go for it.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. Yep. That's how I've Paizo, Wizards, all of it. Bring them all up. You know.
Yeah.
All of
heck,
awesome
I
stuff.
mean,
Make
not
rad stuff, and people buy it.
Not to go down another rabbit hole on this, but I will say, since you mentioned Paizo, when I'm on a road trip, I play Starfinder in the car while I drive, because Paizo has a Alexa app that lets you play Starfinder with Alexa. So I drive and I literally play Starfinder with the stupid computer while I drive. You know, there's always something. There's always
There you go.
something. All
That's
right.
cool.
Moving on. So that's all of our big stories for this week. Let's wrap it up with a couple of last minute quick hits. We mentioned that today is the first day to sign up for GaryCon games. And coincidentally, there is a new couple of books out called The Lost Adventures of GaryCon. And this is from Wizard Tower Games. And it is for sale right now. We'll put the link up in the show notes. It's pretty cool. You can actually get, I want to say hardbound. If I'm wrong about it being a hardcover, then I'm sorry. But there are 2 of the first tournament modules that Tim Kask wrote for GaryCon 1 and 2. My first GaryCon was number 3, so I never played in either one of these, and I'm very interested to check them out. There's the Tower of the Mad Wizard from the first GaryCon, and Return to the Frozen North, both by Tim Kask, and they are published by Wizard Tower Games, and that's Don Zamora, so thanks to him. And then finally, and absolutely not leastly, there is very exciting news that I'm excited about, and that is that there is going to be a hardcover version of one of my favorite new games, Weird Heroes of Public Access. So this is Joey Royale puts this out, and anybody here who goes to gaming conventions on the East Coast has definitely seen Joey at one of the conventions. And if you have, you know, and if you haven't, then you don't. And Weird Heroes of Public Access, it's so fun. It is also just called WHPA. It is set in the small New England town of Fairhaven, where there is a public access television station, and instead of picking character classes, you decide what type of public access TV show you want to start. And the things that you do on the TV show become the skills and powers that you have in this sort of weird, sometimes horror, sometimes just mystery, whatever you want to set it up to be type of game. It is incredibly fun. It is one of the most unique tabletop RPGs that I've ever played in. And up until now, you've only been able to get it in zine format, which I think is really appropriate because zines are great and I love zines. But it has been popular. So now there is going to actually be, it'll be a digest size hardback. And there will be a Kickstarter for it soon. I don't have any links for it, but it was exciting to me and wanted to share that news with everybody.
Yeah, we love Joey. He's awesome.
Yes.
All right, one more thing. We have we've got a couple cons that we are going to that we've confirmed. We're absolutely going to be there. I'm not saying that we won't be at any others, and there may be some between now and then. I know, Jason, you're looking to go to. You and James are looking to go to ShireCon. I don't think I'm making it to that one this year, but we have the Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo, January 16th to 19th, 2025, of course. We're going to be there in full force. We got a bunch of games already lined up. And then the next month, February 21st to 23rd, we're going to be at TotalCon, which we are at every year. So that's what we know right now. We'll list more cons and stuff that we'll be at.
Couple more here.
Yeah.
So we are going, well, I will be up at Brian Larkin's convention, which I didn't put the information in here right now. I believe it's called the Arcane Con. And if I'm wrong about that, I'm super sorry. And we'll get it right in the show notes because I didn't put it in. But I also wanted to let everybody know where Merle Rasmussen will be coming up soon. So Merle, of course, as we mentioned, the creator of Top Secret, which was created in 1980 for the original TSR and is now published by Solarian Games, of course. He will be at Gamehole Con, October 17th to the 20th, and at a bunch of other things coming up in 2025, so I won't get into them too much, but basically GaryCon, WizardCon, North Texas, etc. But definitely Merle will be at Gamehole Con for anybody who's going there.
Right, and Jason, you're going to be at GaryCon.
I am always going to be at GaryCon. You cannot keep me away.
Right. Okay. So,
yes.
and Scott will be there, so there'll be plenty of Top Secret being played there.
Absolutely.
All right, that's it. That's our show for this week.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Gabe, for joining us for hopefully the first time in many. We'll hopefully have you back again.
You're always welcome back.
Well, thanks for inviting me. All right.
Linda, thanks for watching live. And if you're listening to the audio podcast of this and you ever want to watch it live, we generally tend to go live 9 p.m. on Sundays.
Roughly.
That's
That's
It's 9 p.m. Eastern.
9
Yeah.
Eastern. Yep. Sorry. And it's our YouTube channel. So Lane Games YouTube channel. So
Good night.
anyway, good night.